Super excited to have back on the show Charles Hoskinson from Cardano. Charles, welcome back.
It's good to be here. Thanks for having me on, Lark.
Absolutely. Now, the question on everyone's mind today is what is going on over at Cardano? There has been a public statement made that the Cardano Foundation may be moving away from what IOHK and Emergo are doing. Can you give us a little bit of an insight? What's going on?
Well, on our part, Emergo and IOHK, it was more of an open letter we wrote of disappointment and frustration more than a crisis. The fundamentals of Cardano are still sound. Nothing materially has changed today or yesterday from where we were at the day before. In the beginning, the Cardano ecosystem was formed on the back of three entities. There was Emergo, IOHK, and the Cardano Foundation. So unlike a standard foundation, which issues the token, does the sale, hires the developers, negotiates the exchange listings, builds applications, encourages businesses to adopt, we decided that if we went down that road, there would be too much centralization and too much tendency to keep the ecosystem centralized. So it made more sense to break it into three different entities. So IOHK does the science and the engineering side. Emergo does the business relationships and the dApp funding and these things. So what you would look at traditionally consensus doing for Ethereum. And the foundation does the rest. In that case, that's things like community management, community outreach, regulatory outreach. When people ask, why aren't we on a Japanese exchange? Well, that takes lobbying, and that's the job of the Cardano Foundation, as well as things like just being that golden source of truth for information. So what is Cardano? Why is it good? Who should use it? And if there's a hack or an event, having a common place to go. So one of our frustrations over the last 2 years has been that the foundation is not really fit for purpose in the way that it's structured, the governance it currently has. And there's really two foundations in one. There's the mid-levels like Tom Kelly and John and Lay and the rest. And those guys are working hard and they're trying as well as they can with the funding they have, the budget they have, and the time and access they have to keep the Cardano community informed and moderate the channels. And then there's the executive management at the top, which at the time of foundation was four people. It's John McGuire, Bruce Milligan, Guido, and Michael Parsons. What we've witnessed over the last 15 months in particular is the board winnowed down to just two people, Michael Parsons and Guido, and eventually he was replaced with a gentleman named Pascal Schmidt.
What
So
happened to the other
effectively,
two people?
they McGuire left, we believe, for health reasons, and Bruce resigned.
Hmm.
And the other thing that's a bit troubling are the relationships between people. Bruce is the son-in-law of Michael, and Michael's apparently also having his wife do material things there. And
Ah.
the initial goal was for the foundation to have a board of 5 to 7. So a very diverse board representing the interests of the community, someone from Japan, someone from Africa. So our
Hmm.
target market, as well as domain experts like science experts, engineering experts. So it could really act as that effective community representative. In addition to that, we also need a strong executive director, and that executive director would be responsible for carrying out the mandate of the foundation. Never really materialized. So we said, well, these things are hard. They take time. By design, a Swiss foundation is a little slow. So we were well more than willing to wait and pick up the slack in the meantime. Where things started deteriorating was when the foundation started weaponizing its trademark and using the trademark in ways that we felt was counterproductive for the ecosystem. It's at
Hmm.
first really important to understand that the trademark for Cardano doesn't give you gatekeeper or guardianship access where you get to decide who builds on Cardano or not. It's preposterous. No trademark gives you that kind of right over a cryptocurrency protocol. But we had events, for example, the most notable was when we went to Ethiopia. We invited the foundation to attend. They agreed. Up until a week before we went, they were going to go with us.
And
They
they,
went
and
with
they
us
didn't
to
go to
Rwanda.
Ethiopia for a business trip like
Well,
that.
it gets even better. So we were going to go to Ethiopia, the first government in the world to acknowledge Cardano, sign an MOU with us. They backed out. We said, okay. So IOHK signed it. And then we got just an incredible email from Guido basically saying, hey, you didn't tell us you were going here, which is a lie. We don't feel that the representations being made about your relationship with the ecosystem are accurate. We need to work with Emergo to decide how the media and other people should represent things. And we just lost it at that point. We said, look, we're not going to work with you guys in any capacity until you publish a fair use policy for the trademark. So we spent weeks cutting off all communication with them. This was a few months back. And eventually they did publish a fair use policy. But this is what our relationship has been like for the past year, where they haven't really collaborated or cooperated with us on a lot of things. They spend money in odd ways, like with the FP Complete audit. auditing code we're replacing and publishing reports which have no purpose to the ecosystem, or things like millions of dollars on the distributed futures research program, which make absolutely no sense. But I guess the people on that have a pre-existing business relationship with Michael. He's worked with Bob and Michael Manelli before.
The nepotism gets even worse. Not only they're
yeah, right.
Wow, that's absolutely crazy.
And so, what we did was we said, enough. Emergo and IOHK, we have well more enough money to cover what the foundation was intended to do. We're just going to move on out. And, it's our life work. So we're going to pick up the slack, hire our own community managers, and pretend like they don't exist. We'll do what we can to try to affect meaningful change there. And there's a regulatory apparatus in Switzerland. It's called ESA. And we'll work within the confines of what leverage we have to try to affect change. But if that doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. It's not going to impact the Cardano project. It doesn't slow down development. They don't control IOHK's money. I do. They don't control Emergo's money. Ken Kodama does. So we're completely independent, autonomous. And we set up the structure that way so that if one of the three failed, the other two could compensate for that. Kind of like when your kidneys goes bad, the other kidney wakes up and compensates for the load.
So you still have two of the three pillars of Cardano holding everything up. Now, in that open letter, you asked, I believe, did you ask for him to resign, essentially?
I think at this point, given what he was supposed to do, and given his age, his experience, and obviously his lack of passion. I mean, for 2 years, he didn't even put chairman of the Cardano Foundation on his LinkedIn page. And if you look at his Twitter feed, there's very little about our ecosystem, and there's very little publicity. It doesn't go and talk to the media. It doesn't really do much for us. It's clear to me that he's just not really in the game, and that's okay. But if you're not in the game, you are working for the people of Cardano. You need to get out of the game. You shouldn't be head
of the foundation.
Right. And I guarantee you can find 1,000 people who want that job in a heartbeat, and they'd be very passionate and excited to have it. So for the best interests of the community, it's about time for a clean slate, in our view, so for the books to be clean and financial transparency. So publish data, address, publish remuneration of the executive officers and how they've spent their money, because they are an audited public entity. And then for a new board to be appointed. And we made some recommendations. Someone should be from Japan. 90% of the initial ADA distribution was there. They need fair representation. Someone should be from Africa. We have a Pan-African strategy for adoption. And we should probably have people from Latin America, from Europe, and from North America. And that's already 5. And then beyond that, there needs to be domain experts. The foundation at this moment doesn't have a single real developer there, and they don't have a single real scientist there. Yet they presume to have the ability to audit IOHK, which has many, many scientists and engineers. And we have different auditing processes which we think are superior to what
So essentially, this is not the end of the Cardano Foundation. This is the board's going to be shuffled around a little bit. That process might take some time because it is a Swiss entity, and there are processes that need to be gone through in order for this to happen. But essentially, it's the weakest pillar, perhaps we could say right now, and it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. And IOHK and Emergo are trying to re-strengthen that pillar. Is that would be a good representation of what's trying to happen here?
It's a multi-phase plan. So step 1 is just make sure that we can cover for what they're not doing. Like, we really need to get ADA listed in Japan. So we'll hire some lobbyists, and we'll hire community managers, and we'll go out and do the things they were supposed to do. People are eventually going to issue assets on ADA. It's coming soon. We need to have an STO and ICO policy of, what's a best practice on how to do that. And we have many opportunities, like the Ugandan government's come to us and asked us to participate on writing regulation. We've talked to Mongolia's regulators about ICO policy. So we have the opportunity not only to draft smart contracts and standards for issuing tokens, we have a way of actually creating a whitelist where if you do it in a certain way, you could actually be lawful and legal in certain jurisdictions that cooperate. These are the kinds of things the foundation was created to do, and if they're not going to do it, we'll just go and do that, amongst other things. Talking to exchanges, the Ledger project.
It's tricky, though, I can see, Charles, because IOHK and Emergo, you were set up to do different things, right? And so, you guys have to carry that extra weight, right? It's not the most efficient way to run. So I hope that the Cardano Foundation can get back on its feet here in the near future and be the way it was envisaged to be, as being that lobbyist for Cardano, to be out there and be pushing the good name of Cardano all around the world to governments and different organizations and companies.
Right. And remember, they're not going anywhere. Swiss foundations are notoriously difficult to get rid of. So that money The money's just sitting there, and whether it's active or not, it eventually will wake up and under wiser minds. And once reason prevails, they'll eventually be a gift to the community. The other thing is the ADA there is not going anywhere. I don't believe they've spent any of it, and I don't think they can at the moment, the way it's structured. So it's going to stay there for a while, and at some point, we'll get where we need to go. And I'm not going to complain about it. I mean, just grab a shovel, go get digging, do some work. That's what I'm doing.
That
And
solves
we'll
most
get
problems most of the time.
exactly. It's a game of rigor, and it's a game of grit. And we have so many amazing things coming out. I mean, right now in Toronto in a hotel room, and tomorrow we're going to CCS. It's one of the top cryptography conferences in the world, along with Eurocrypt and crypto, and we're showing off Ouroboros Genesis. And one of our scientists actually flew here from Switzerland, and we're going to do a video. And this is the first time we've ever talked about our sharding design that we have for Cardano. It's called Ouroboros Hydra. This is the first paper. It's the parallel chains paper that we've written. So it's like our take on DAGs and our take on how to shard things, and we're moving in that direction. We also have affiliate partners that are publishing great things, like Promote and his guys at UIUC, along with funding from DARPA and NSF and Army Research. They wrote a whole paper on state channels, proof of stake incentives, and a sharding scheme called Polyshard. So there's some great things that are coming out, and we're just fine tuning. And we're going to do some videos very soon about Shelley, and Duncan is just in beast mode right now. We've woken the sleeping Haskell giant, and he's having the time of his life, writing specs and actually doing the code the right way and throwing away all the Seracel code. So our best days are ahead of us. We have a huge research advantage on everybody, and we were kind of stuck in the mud with some bad code and bad processes and this issue with the foundation. But we're actually almost unstuck at the moment, and we're moving much faster. 1.3.1 is coming out soon. 1.4 is actually ahead of schedule in terms of QA. We thought it'd take a little bit longer, and the testnet should be coming out soon. And the Rust Cardano client is just moving at light speed. We've started hiring more people, and it's actually the first time where we're having multiple companies in the ecosystem contributing to that. So it looks like Emergo is going to provide Rust developers in addition to IOHK for Rust Cardano. And we now have an open source community manager. His name's Robin. He's a guy from Netherlands, and he's worked on CMSs like Joomla and other things like that. And his job is write the CIP, which was the responsibility of the foundation. We'll do it now, the Cardano Improvement Proposal process, the first draft of that. And also his job is to get open source contributions to our project. So we're going to start moving our projects out of private GitHub repos or pseudo public repos and UTrack as our issue tracking, and move into Git and do Git issues and allow people to actually see how we handle project management. So that's a transition. It's going to be a very painful one, but pain is on our side, not on the community side. It's just you get used to these easy centralized hierarchical processes, and then you realize, oh, there's the rest of the world, and we have to make things understandable for them. And boy, we should write things down in a very careful way. So that's what we're going to do. And it's going to be a lot of work, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and also it's really going to show off the methodology we have. I mean, we spent a whole year figuring out how to write a formal spec, implement from a formal spec, and it was a tremendously educational process. We had to hire a lot of people and go back and forth about what's too much versus what's too little. And we've done this now with the wallet backend. It's the first time we're shipping code with 1.4, which is based on that engineering methodology. And now what we can do is take it, parallelize it, double down on it, and clip it so that it operates in half the time. And to give you a sense of what an accomplishment that is, the projects that typically do this usually have a 3 to 5 year time horizon, and they cost more than $10 million, and they're done out of academia. The case studies like the SEL4 microkernel project or CompCert, these are two examples. One was in Haskell, and the other one was in Coq and OCaml for certified C compiler. And the SEL4 was for OS kernel. In both cases, those were massive projects, and they're like people got PhDs based on that work. And they're still researching that type of stuff. What we've done is taken those techniques and we're putting it into a commercial product, and we're doing it in the multi-month time horizon instead of the half-decade time horizon. And we've built capabilities at IOHK to let us do these kinds of things and move very quickly. So, the public doesn't see that, but if they're really carefully following our GitHub repo and the documents we release and how we've been approaching things, they'll start seeing that, or they've noticed it. But unfortunately, it tends to get lost in a lot of the noise because we don't have a good marketing arm to broadcast.
It's definitely tricky,
Behind that. And that
Charles,
was the
because
foundation.
the thing is that stories like drama at the foundation, that leads the news cycle, whereas going out and saying, "Hey guys, we updated the
Right.
GitHub database," people go, that's not so exciting."
You know,
Unfortunately, and that's
it's
the
amazing the
exciting
Tezos
stuff.
community. The worst offenders were the Tezos community, where Arthur and Kathleen couldn't just resist going to Twitter and spiking the ball. And I was like, guys, if this is our version of a governance crisis, it's a pretty weak one. In your case, it was an existential threat. You took some dude in Switzerland, you gave him $250 million, you said, okay, play ball, doesn't play ball, and basically means everything comes to a grinding halt, no one gets paid. In our case, there's 3 entities, there's redundancies built in, the board had 4 people in the beginning, there were checks and balances, and one of the entities just really didn't execute. And we tried for 2 years to get them where they needed to go, and we just gave up on the current leadership structure doing what they needed. So we said, fuck it, we'll move on. And we're moving on. And 1.3.1 is coming out soon. It's almost done with QA, and we'll get right down to 1.4. That's next on the line. And then, there's lots of great documents coming out. I'm at a major academic conference. Everybody's still getting paid. So where's the scandal? Yet they wanted to make it a huge scandal. And, the crypto media also does the same thing. I expect eventually CoinDesk will finally write about us because now they have something to write about, right? They write about our work, but don't necessarily write about the other side of it.
One of these days, if it bleeds, it leads,
yeah.
Charles. That's the thing. And well, that's why I wanted to talk to you today, really, because it's so hard to find out the real story when you go out and you look in the media and you've got the story and you can actually tell the community, hey, this is what's going on. This is the real story behind the story. This is what else is going on that you're not being told. There's all this exciting development happening, which that's important to point out to people because it's so easy to get lost in that. If you're, like you said, if you're not watching the GitHub, no one's reporting on it. So,
as a final point, the reality is that Cardano is a project that's composed of a lot of people. The guardians of Cardano are the ones who really forced the issue. We kept tolerating this lack of performance on the IOHK Emergo side, trying to find a way to make it peaceful for the sake of the ecosystem. But the guardians wrote a 14-page letter, and they said, that's it. We're fed up with this whole thing. We can see it, and if we can see it, it's got to be bad. We're going to publish something. IOHK and Emergo, we just decided, you know what? Let's support these guys. But these guys are completely independent. They're just from the community. They came together out of frustration and they said, this is as much our protocol as it is Michael Parsons' protocol, as it is Charles Hoskinson's protocol. And we have every right to be heard. And, they did everything the right way. They contacted Parsons. They sent him an early copy of the letter. They said, we have over 100 questions that we'd like answered. Would you like to comment? Silence, 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 always silence. And so they said, all right, well, we'll just publish it openly then. And they did. And then we supported them. We published our own open letter and said, look, we understand you, we hear you, and we'd love to collaborate with them and the growing Cardano community. There's over 100,000 people in our community, man, and it keeps growing, and it's very strong. People are naming their kids after our protocol. I was in South Korea, and this couple came up to me, and they had this cute little girl. She was about 6 months old, and they told me in broken English, they said, you'll never guess what we named her. And I said, what? And they said, Ada. They named their daughter Ada.
That's awesome.
And they love what we do. And so when you have a community that's strong and that passionate, like little rifts aren't going to break it. If we're so weak that a cult of personality or one little entity is going to break our back, then we don't deserve to call ourselves decentralized and don't deserve to call ourselves a movement. We're no better than Enron or no better than Chase or no better than Goldman Sachs or any of these other guys, good, bad, and ugly. We're just the same old, same old. So the key behind great movements is empowering the people at the bottom to wake up and when they see a problem, solve the problem. And they don't have to ask for permission. They're just going to go and do it. And that's what we saw here. So if anything, I think that it's a great indication that Cardano is very strong, much stronger than a lot of people give it credit for, and a great indication that our best days are ahead of us.
Very, very cool. Charles, thank you so much for coming on to update the community about what's going on and give us the inside scoop.
Thanks, Lark. This was a pleasure. Cheers.